doing well. Here is Isel, Vicky, and with a special guest today. As we were speaking the other day, as you know, that we want to invite many humanitarians, ex-humanitarians, wanting to be humanitarians to talk about their transition journey. And this time we thought of introducing you to Fran, and then we go from there. Fran, why don't you start introducing? And I feel like people already know me and Vicky, but we can always jump in and tell a bit more about ourselves. Fran, floor is yours.
Sure. My name's Fran Beytrison. I'm British. I'm 42 years old. I now live in the Valais region of Switzerland. It's a beautiful part of the Alps. I have, I think, a fairly standard humanitarian parcours for this time in life. I studied political science, I did a postgrad in Paris. I did an internship with the UN in Darfur, and it went from there. And so since then, primarily field positions in different contexts with NGOs. And then I think from probably 2016, 2017, a sort of growing sense that I couldn't project myself forward anymore. I couldn't see myself in another aid worker position, I mean, managerial positions that I'd been holding. And so just this creeping realization that I think firstly, that wasn't going to happen. And then this big sense of, well, then what on earth? I mean, what is it? Yeah, so I don't know where do you want me to start in terms of what?
Yeah, thank you for this introduction, and thank you for telling us a little bit about your background. And you started really, as we say in medias res, you told us immediately that you hit at some point this wall of saying, okay, I can't project myself, and you didn't know what to do. So what was your decision-making process to get you where you are today?
I mean, I think, process, I think is the right word. I don't think there's one decision made. I think there are various choices made at different stages. I mean, if I put myself back to 2016, I think at 2016, I felt that I was running out of what I had to give in the role that I had at the time. It was a big managerial role. I had a big team, a lot of people sort of depending on you, expectations. And behind that, again, small children at home, depending on you, expectations. And then a husband who was in a similar position, not necessarily, I think, at that point projecting a departure from the aid sector, but certainly struggling in terms of what role, how, not finding the job satisfaction that I think we had previously. Certain things made it very simple for me at that point. I basically waited for him to have the next posting to know that I could stop. As soon as that was fixed, I handed in my resignation. And I said, okay, I'm going to give myself 1 year because I could count on him having that role. We did the relocation. I focused on the kids, sorting out schools, sort of setting up life again in a new place. And I think over the course of that year, I think that year was really the sort of foundation year, or the time that really gave me the space to start not even looking for solutions. I think just understanding what the questions were that I needed to start asking. So lucky, I think, to have that option, to have that possibility. I think it's not always the case. And I took that year, I literally took a diary and sort of sat there and was like, what did I used to do with my spare time 20 years ago, before I came into the sector, before it takes over your life, because you're working 7/7 and your social life and your interests and your hobby, everything is linked to what particular mission you're on at a given time. And I came up with like four things. I liked reading, I liked learning languages, I liked sort of exploring new cultures, I liked having a dog. So I got a dog, I signed up for Russian classes, I bought a Kindle, and I basically went and walked my dog, ate amazing food, and read my book and tried to do my Russian homework every lunchtime. It was great. And I think that was kind of a first step to sort of setting certain non-negotiables or certain parameters. just kind of refocusing, not reacting to this expectation that you take the next job, you go back into a certain box, and just taking the time to take the step back and say, well, what is my box like? What do I want my box to look like?
Yeah.
I mean, I think
amazing. Fran, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think just at that point, I mean, taking a dog is a huge commitment. I mean, we have kids. You could argue that kids are a bigger commitment, but I think for me, it was the dog was kind of this subconscious certainty that we were not going to be able to traipse this dog every 2 years, new mission around any context in the world. So I kind of knew, and I maybe wasn't, it's not that I wasn't honest about that. We didn't really have a conversation about that with my husband. But for me, it was clear. It was, this is something that's going to force us to make some big changes.
Yeah.
Fran, one of the things that I'm, sorry. I know that our internet is a bit, our internet is a bit slow, at least from my Ukraine area where I am now. But one of the things that I wanted to just bring attention maybe is this concept that I think at certain times in our lives, we tend to be so much focused on reacting to what's available out there in the world and somehow trying to fit in there. No, I mean, in some ways it's actually, I guess, also beneficial to be resilient, to grow certain skills, to adapt to things, to learn a lot of new things, and that's very nice. But at other times of our lives, I think fitting in there or adjusting ourselves or just looking at what's available may not really satisfy us anymore. So we want to rather look at what is it really that I really truly enjoy and want to do and want to be spending my time on. And refocusing that, I think, is amazing. So therefore, Fran, I think you seem to have found a great way to transition. What I would be very interested to know, and I think our viewers as well, is that those questions that you said, what kind of questions I really want to be asking myself, because I think oftentimes we also ask questions that bring more suffering as to what's wrong with me, or why can't I figure out things, what I want, right? So these are not really useful questions. So therefore, I think the power of question that we put to ourselves is so crucial at any given point of decision making. So I would love to, hear from you. What were the significant questions you would say that got you to believing or trusting, okay, I'm going to do this, or I want to do this, or this is how I'm going to go, right?
I mean, there were so many stages to that. We're in 2022, and I would say I could only say with confidence that I'd made a sort of definitive decision, and even that, honestly, is debatable how definitive. But I mean, this was a 5-year process. And I mean, it's funny what you say that, I took that year to set those parameters, because in many ways, so I mean, the upshot of that process, and I think the end of that year was, do we do another mission? No. And it was a sort of visceral no. And we chose to come back to Switzerland. So a big part of the question was answered not so much from a professional perspective, or maybe a rejection of what the professional perspectives were, but this recentering on the personal, like my day-to-day life, what makes me happy in my day-to-day. The only thing I think that I felt I had clear at that point was the personal. So that really drove this decision for the pair of us, for two of us, to come back to Switzerland and say, okay, we're going to set up in Switzerland. We're not going to set up in Geneva. We're not going to just walk into that familiar aid sector sort of comfort zone or easy option. We're really going to sort of work out from this personal base in terms of what our personal principles or quality of life needs to be. And so that drove a relocation back to Switzerland. But when I got here, I totally went in with all of those same assumptions. I was looking for that familiarity. I assumed I was looking for a job already. I didn't for a moment think about independence or setting up a business. I assumed I was looking for a job that reflected back the language, the types of roles and responsibilities that I'd had in the aid sector. So again, I wasn't asking the right questions, I think, at that point. I was still working off assumptions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like, Fran, first of all, that you took time to reflect whilst, as you mentioned, this 1 year, and you said it was several stages. It was not complete. So as you said, it's a process, and you took time to reflect and just to be yourself. And I think this is very important also, just to recall that these are really important moments that I often talk to my clients to take time, just to take time to reflect, because in this fast pace of humanitarian work, we can spend years without actually properly reflecting what we really want in life. Yeah. And then I'm also very curious when you said that I actually asked questions, but maybe from the beginning they were not the right questions. How did you get to the point where you are today, that you have this project that you start with your husband? That is really a result also, I think, of quite of really thinking process of what is it that you want to what is it that we want to create. I think it would be interesting for our viewers to see, because you also mentioned that initially I went to something familiar. I knew I went to look for humanitarian jobs, but actually that was not my answer. How did you
Yeah.
come to the other answer?
I mean, I think there was a lot of things happening at once. I think aid workers, we underestimate ourselves. I think we are by nature, as you said, we are adaptive, we are agile. We get into a new mission, a new context. We have to get up to speed, and we're able to sort of take on a huge amount of analysis around where we are, our situation. And I think we shouldn't underestimate that. But when I got back to Switzerland, I initiated a bilan de compétences, like a competency review with a coach, presented as transitions. For me, the meaning of transitions, I don't consider a job change a transition. That's just a new job. For me, a transition was really about leaving the humanitarian sector and really going into a new sector altogether. But still with this assumption that it was about finding a job. Assumption that it was about some sort of public service, sort of parallel, domestic parallels to humanitarian work, and an assumption that, you know, what I thought I had always done well, or were my professional competencies, needed to somehow drive my job hunting. So I was very focused on looking at, you know, the job titles that look similar, projecting into this, again, comfort zone, I think. And I think just parallel to that, being in Sion, being in a new environment, for my husband, maybe not so new. For me, it was completely new. I hadn't lived in Valais before, only in Geneva. It's very different. So that was kind of forcing almost a constant sort of questioning and assessment, like what is Valais? How does this context work? What's the economy? What are the politics? What's the, I mean, aid sector analysis, right? Where are you? And I think that got me sort of identifying potential, or just a kind of, I think as a foreigner, you arrive in a context and you see things that maybe other people don't see. So quite quickly, we kept coming back to the tourism sector. Oh, there's so much that could be done here. They've got this. They don't know how to sell themselves. Like lots of low-hanging fruit that you could really do something with in Valais. So we were kind of having these, you know, the kind of conversations you have in the kitchen table. Oh, we could take this little hotel and convert it and do this. But with this underlying sense that it's not really realistic, because, you know, you never would you? And I was doing this professional coaching, again, always with a view to go and find a proper job. And I think it was kind of a convergence of the two. So this sector, this tourism, sort of these conversations not going away. The more I was seeing, the more I was sort of assessing what was there, the more I was seeing gaps and opportunities in that sector. And then this bilan de compétences, which very early on, the coach basically said, oh, you have a profile for entrepreneurship. And I completely dismissed that at the time. It was not something that registered at all, because I mean, to me, entrepreneurship is, I don't know, you identify it with, you know, bad capitalism, everything that humanitarian is not meant to be. And I think I didn't have private sector role models as a kid. It was all about, teachers, lawyers, doctors, like public service type roles.
Right.
I never saw myself as an imaginative person. I was like, to be an entrepreneur, you have to be really innovative. You have to be really creative. You need to really come up with an idea that nobody else has come up with. I was like, that's not me. I have no idea what I would do for a business. But he said this, and we then went through the bilan de compétences process. And yeah, it really helped me draw out, I think, almost completing what I'd started on a personal level. What gives me satisfaction? Where do I take pleasure? It sounds very cliched, but literally that basic, and applying that to the work environment. So what are the professional competencies that I was using? Did it fit with me? Was it stressing me to use these competencies, or was it actually my natural state? What did I enjoy doing? Did I want to be commuting 2.5 hours a day? Did I want to be traveling abroad? How big did I want my world to be? Do I want to be in an organization of 20,000 people or a really small office? Do I want to have responsibilities in a team to manage? So just, I think, really working methodically through all of these sort of professional environment sectors, questions, but always with this backdrop. Again, there were two of us doing this, a sense that you're somehow waiting for the other to move forward, but equally benefiting the fact that there's two of you, you can have conversations, you support each other, you're not doing it on your own. But definitely trying to always have in mind that whatever professional solution I found, it had to, by that point, I think, fit around sort of home priorities. So very, very basically, in Valais, the kids have very little schooling. They come home every day for lunch, 2.5 hours, because there's no canteen, for example. So how do you deal with that? How does that fit with any sort of job?
Amazing. So, Fran, I think there are two things that I want to highlight from what you're saying, which is so great for everyone to hear. I think one is this concept that transitioning is not only from one job to another, which we often think of it, like we often think transition is also from one place to another place, but rather I would love to think of it as a mind shift of prioritizing what's important for you in this period of your life, right? So therefore, like you're saying, that here's a family, this is a setting that we really want, and everything else needs to fit that. And that's, I think, very beautiful. And the other thing that you said wonderfully is that we humanitarians often, like I was saying, don't really think of how do I want to create from scratch, even if if I want to. Instead, we often go to what fits my profile, or what is I good at it, and what can I find similar in the new place. And I think for some people, maybe that's what you want, but always check with yourself and not dismissing what is really that you want that you have never done before. And you think that you're not good at it, but you could always develop that side of it, or work with a coach who can also show this is actually where you could be good at it. It's just that you're not acknowledging that part of you, right? So that's why I think a beautiful example of not only at what the market shows me, offers me, but rather what is it really that I would love to use and enjoy, and also make my living out of it. So that's why I think that's a wonderful way to transitioning. So I think maybe the other thing that, people are always interested, I think, is all the challenges that our brains offer as we're doing all of this, right? So, my challenges certainly were, what if I run out of money? What if I will live on the street and no one is there to help me, right? What if I can't send money to my mom and to my family and all this stuff? And all of this, like, running music in the background telling you have to be careful, you have to do this, you have to do that, or you cannot be failing, or whatever else our brains suffer. What would you say part of the challenge as you were going through? If you didn't, that's also absolutely fine.
No, huge challenge. I think my approach has been super pragmatic and super methodological. once I'd set my parameters. So once I was clear, I literally had like a box. This was my box. Within that box, there's a labyrinth. So sometimes you went up this way. Oh no, it's blocked. You have to go back and try another one. And that box was 4 years of try this, step back, do this. And I think you have to think of it as a nexus program. It's an integrated humanitarian and development program where you have to do both. So you have that long-term goal. You must keep taking steps towards that long-term goal. But in the meantime, you're going to have to flex, and that's your humanitarian. So you might have to do a bit more, a bit less. Sometimes the development agenda moves forward. Other times you have to firefight, get back in, earn some money, like reboost the stocks, and then go back. But you can't lose sight of that long-term goal. I think the biggest challenge, the challenge isn't realizing it. I think the challenge is figuring out what that long-term goal is. I think once you've got that clear in your head, you can afford to be much more relaxed about how you get there. I think it's stressful when you don't know, because that's what's frightening. You know that you want out. You know you have to find a solution. You feel huge pressure to find that solution. You don't know how and you don't know what. For me, from the moment that I'd actually got this idea, I could see that it was viable. I could see it was going to work. I could see we could get the money for it. Everything else, you can find a solution for anything. You just have to be really clear what you want to deliver.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you for actually mentioning that. Sorry. That the most difficult part is figuring out what is it. If I'm not a humanitarian, what is it that I am? What is it that I'm going to do? So for me, also the part of the transition is, as we mentioned, is a transition of identity, transition of lifestyle, transition of the whole being. And I'm curious to know at which point did you know that, okay, I'm
the light bulb moment.
This is what I want to do. Sorry?
the light bulb moment.
Yeah, I think because a lot of people, and there is rarely a light bulb moment, but for some people there is. I had a little bit of a light bulb moment for myself, because as we mentioned, it's a process, and it's you get from one point to another. Did you have this light bulb moment, or you were just, gradually you knew that, okay, I'm really sure about my future. This is the future long-term goal. And we are getting there somehow. I am hearing two parallel processes that, we are working towards, but there's also some other work happening to pay the bills initially.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think for me, it was kind of a growing conviction or a growing belief and a confidence in myself and my ability to launch this project, deliver this project, and a confidence in the project that it was going to be worthwhile and that it was going to deliver. I mean, it sounds a bit obsessive, but I had really clear criteria, like that there's 15 years age difference between myself and my husband. He's going to hit retirement. We cashed in his pension. I'm going to have to substitute for his salary and his retirement. I won't have any of that. So, I mean, I had some really clear, this couldn't just be a sort of a little income that allows us to function. It needed to literally replace 2 full-time managerial aid worker positions if we wanted to keep the kind of quality of life that we'd got accustomed to. So, I mean, just calculations like that really helped me, I think, be clear on what the requirements were of my solution. And I mean, for me, it really was about problem solving. And I think, again, this is something that aid workers do really well. We're just not used to doing it for ourselves. But I think once you've figured out what is that problematique, how do you take it apart, find the solution? And I think we have the skills to do that. I think we are natural entrepreneurs, I say now with hindsight. I would never have said that 5 years ago, but we really are. And I think these are skills that are undervalued. We're not aware of them. We're not aware how different that makes us, I think, to a lot of people who have more conventional professional careers. So I would say, I think have confidence in these problem solving skills. I think it is about finding that long-term objective. For me, how did the solution come about? How did we find this project? Some of it was luck. A lot of it was just 2 to 3 years of analysis, of market surveys, of financial projections. What do we have as our resources to put in? what can I get? Fundraising, again, aid workers are really good at writing proposals, right? Go and get some money. That's essentially your business plan. So putting this documentation together, testing my ideas, I thought I had a good plan, taking it to the bank, taking it to Canton to request, sizable amounts of investment, really helps you start testing and refining what you're trying to deliver. And I think that the project taking form and me going through these steps, giving myself confidence in me and in my project, at the same time, in just being more aware, I think, of what the perspectives were. I think having a stronger, what do I mean? Sort of slowly stepping away from the aid sector and being clearer and clearer on what I didn't want professionally, sort of forces you even more to commit to what's taking form. So yeah, I think still two parallel tracks a little bit. Being more aware of what the professional perspectives would be if I were to look for a job, and a really strong sense that no, I don't want that, I don't want that, I don't want that, forces you to invest all the more and to put even more energy and belief into the alternative.
Amazing.
I think you need almost the wall, you need something to work from. And I think one of the challenges for me was we're an international family. We could have gone back to the UK, we could have come to Switzerland, we could have gone to any other country in the world. Once we come to Switzerland or the UK, which town do you go to before you're thinking about job prospects? And what comes first? Is it the job? Is it the home life? I think these are the bigger picture, sort of the framework that we had to fix. The more we fixed it, I mean, we bought a house to come here. So from day one, we were forcing ourselves, we have to find a solution. This isn't a 3-month short-term rental furnished that we're going to see what we're going to do. This is it. We're here. We have to find a solution with what we have. And I think that sounds a bit brutal, but it actually forces you to be creative. And I think, again, this is what aid workers are accustomed to doing. This is your environment, move forward. And we do.
Amazing. So I think we want to wrap up, but I think some of the things that I love about what Fran you said is that one is you always have a choice to believe in yourself and your project, even if it sounds like a very cliche thing and all this, you heard it millions of times. But literally, when you know that you really believe in yourself and the project is when you start acting on it. And you also start committing yourself to doing that, where you tell yourself, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to make it work, and I will make it work no matter what, right? So that's why I really love that level of commitment that Fran, you and your family have decided that this is our home, we're going to make it work, we're going to try different things, and we know that we're going to get there no matter what, right? So I think that's some of the commitment that we can always bring to anything that we want to do from scratch or a new thing. And what's amazing that Fran told everyone that we all have that, so many skills and abilities to do that. So having said that, I think it's time for the wrapping words, final words, thing that you would like people to, I mean, you've already said so much, but any final things of if people were to start from now on being inspired by your story, by our story, if they wanted to start doing one thing as of now, what would you say they could focus on?
Find a soundboard to help finding those questions. Ask those questions, all the questions. The more you talk to people, the more you will ask questions, they will ask questions, the more content you have to work with. I think this has to be the starting point, because there isn't a path, there isn't a rule, there isn't a process or a solution. You have to figure it out. So you have to talk.
Amazing. Vicky, you want to say anything?
Thank you very much. I just really want to thank Fran for her for sharing her amazing story. I mean, when I heard it first time, I was really inspired because it is not only because I believe that there is a difference when you're transitioning as a one person and when you have the additional, well, it's a burden, but also a pleasure, of course, to be as the family, to have your partner and children. I think you have to, that's a much larger project. And it is, I love your story because you show it's possible. You also show that it's a complex, it's not easy. You have to work on it. You have to permanently work. So really just to say that, you know, people who expect that, oh, I will wait for the conditions to be great and then I'll do, it doesn't work like that, right? It's a constant process. You have to invest. It takes time. And sometimes you're in two processes, parallel processes together. So thank you for sharing your amazing story. I really want to thank you for that and really want to wish you best of luck for your glamping project and for to go forward. And we hope to visit it one day.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Hey, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening, tuning in, getting to the conversation with us. If you have any more questions or, I don't know, clarifying requests, Fran, would you be available to stay in touch? How is that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. So
Thank you very
thank you
much.
so much, friends. Thank you, Vicky, and thank you all. And we will be live again next Thursday at the same time. So in the meantime, if you have questions coming up, please do let us know. Until then, stay healthy, stay in peace, and thank you, Fran, again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Bye.
day.